The Celestial Empire, or Points and Pickings of Information about China and the Chinese, by George Mogridge. Chapter 14. The Present Emperor of China, Tao Quang. Louis XIV of France, Peter the Great of Russia, and Kang He, Emperor of China, lived and reigned at the same time. They are three of the most celebrated monarchs that have ever exercised kingly power. Louis engaged in wars and encountered the arts to aggrandize France. Peter greatly civilized Russia, rescuing it in a great degree from barbarity, and Kang He consolidated China, the largest empire of the world when conquered by the barbarian Tatars. Tao Quang, the present emperor of China, born in the year 1781, is the second son of the late Emperor Qie King. He succeeded his father in 1820, in the 39th year of his age, so that now, being more than 60 years of age, it is no wonder that he should have somewhat the look of an old man. He is tall and slender, and his complexion rather dark. Had he run into the excesses of his father and his younger brothers, no doubt his infirmities would have been greater than they are. Tao Quang, in his royal robes, has an imposing appearance. Though not so highly gifted as several European sovereigns, yet is he disposed to be generous, diligent in the performance of his kingly duties, and free from extravagance. Those who think favorably of him consider him to be an easy sort of a ruler, and much more disposed to keep things as they are than to effect changes. The Sultan, or Grand Signior, sovereign of the Turks or Ottomans, has a tolerable list of sounding titles. For he is not only called Padi Shah, or Emperor, but also Padi Shah Islam, Emperor of Islamism, or the Mohammedan world. Imam ul Muslimin, Pontiff of Muslims, Sultan ul Din, Protector of the Faith, Alempena, a Refuge of the World, and Zil Ula, Shadow of God. But this list could hardly be compared with that of the Emperor of China if we were to enumerate all the high titles which are given to him. However, among them he is called Reason's Glory, the Sacred Son of Heaven, Imperial Supreme, the sole ruler of the earth, Lord of 10,000 years, King of 10,000 islands, the flower of the imperial race, the sun of the firmament of honor, the resplendent gem in the crown and throne of the Chinese territories, and the great father of his people. The reason why Tao Quang was raised to the throne was this. When his father was in extreme danger, having his palace surrounded and stormed by a powerful band of robbers, he bravely defended him at the extreme hazard of his own life. For this, his father, Qie King, appointed him to be his successor. This affair has been thus described by the Emperor Qie King. A banditti of upwards of 70 men of the sect Teen Lei violated the prohibited gate and entered within side. They wounded the guard and rushed into the inner palace. 4 rebels were seized and bound. 3 others ascended the wall with a flag. My imperial second son seized a musket and shot 2 of them. My nephew killed a third. For this deliverance I am indebted to the energies of my second son. The princes and chief officers of the Lung Sung Gate led forth the troops, and after 2 days and one night's utmost exertion, completely routed the rebels. Though you may never have attended a British coronation, it is possible that you may have read an account of the ceremony performed on such an occasion. To a Chinese, the entrance into the cathedral, the recognition, the oblation, the anthem, the oath, and the anointing, the presentation of the spurs and sword, the investing with the royal robe, the ring and scepter, the putting on the crown, the presentation of the Holy Bible, the benediction, the inthronization, the homage, the communion, and the recess would occasion as much surprise as you would manifest on witnessing the ceremony of a Chinese emperor ascending to the summit or seating himself on the throne. In China, the throne is called the dragon's seat, and what we term a coronation the Chinese call ascending to the summit. Having by me a translation of the Chinese ceremonies observed on the ascension of Tao Kuang to the throne, which appeared in the Peking Gazette at the time, I will here lay it before you. And if you are half as curious in regard to all that belongs to the Chinese as I am, you will read it over with equal attention and interest. The document was issued by the Board of Ceremonies that the forms attended on ascending to the throne might be properly observed. Thus runs the account. The members of the Board of Rites beg respectfully to state the usual ceremonies observed at the ascension of the emperors. On the day appointed for the ceremony, the commander of the foot guards shall lead in the troops to take their station at the several gates of the imperial city. The members of the Board of Rites and of the Hung Lu office shall assemble in the imperial council chamber and set the seal table, on which the imperial seal is to be placed, in the Palace of Peace to the south of the imperial throne and exactly in the middle. Let them set the report table on which the petition requesting His Majesty to ascend the throne is to be laid, on the south side of the eastern pillar of the palace. The edict table, on which is to be placed the imperial proclamation announcing the ascension, on the north side of the eastern pillar. Let the writing table, on which the pen and ink used on the occasion are to lie, be set on the right or left of the western pillar, and the yellow table, from which the proclamation is to be promulgated, on the red steps, or elevation at the foot of the throne where ministers advance to pay their obeisance, exactly in the middle. The imperial guards, both officers and men, shall then enter and set forth in order the imperial travelling equipage in front of the Palace of Peace. They shall next make ready His Majesty's foot chariot, that is, one usually drawn by men, without the palace gate. The fine, ancient, imperial carriages shall then be set forth without the Wu gate. The docile elephants shall be placed to the south of the 5 carriages. Let them draw up the imperial horse guards on the right and left of the middle path of the vestibule, fronting each other east and west. Let the imperial canopy and cloud-capped basin, in which the imperial proclamation announcing the emperor's ascension is placed, be set within the vestibule. After this, the members of the Board of Music shall arrange the ancient musical instruments used by Shun to the east and west on the palace causeway, and the musical instruments used on state occasions they shall set in order within the palace. These shall be thus placed, but not, for the present, used. Next, The musical instruments used at the arrival and departure of His Majesty, together with the dragon dome and the incense dome, that is, a kind of portable sheds or porticos, shall be set forth without the Wu gate. The officers of the Board of Public Works shall place the golden phoenix at the gate of celestial repose, directly in the middle, and set the stage from which the proclamation is to be made, in the first chamber on the east side of the gate. The second officer of the Board of Rights, having ready the petition requesting the Emperor to ascend the throne, shall take it reverentially in both his hands and place it on the petition table, already set on the south side of the eastern pillars. One of the officers of the council chamber, taking the proclamation to be subsequently issued in both his hands, shall place it on the edict table, standing to the north of the eastern pillar. One of the secretaries of the council chamber shall in the same manner take the pencil and inkstone and put them on the table on the west side of the palace. The Prime Minister shall then lead forth the members of the council chamber to the gate of celestial purity, that is, His Majesty's private apartment, and beg for the imperial seal. The Hyozze, one of the members, shall receive it with profound reverence, and the Prime Minister shall follow him from the gate of celestial purity to the palace of peace, where it shall be laid on the seal table, which is in the middle of the hall, on the south of the imperial throne, after which they shall retire. Then the officers of the Hung Lu Ze office shall bring up the kings and nobles of the imperial kindred, from the highest down to those of the 8th rank, on the elevation at the foot of the throne. Then the great officers of state, civil and military, all in their court dresses, shall arrange themselves in order, according to their rank, within the vestibule. At the appointed hour, the President of the Board of Rights shall go and entreat His Majesty to put on his mournings and come forth by the gate of the eastern palace and enter at the left door of the middle palace, where His Majesty, before the altar of his deceased imperial father, will respectfully announce that he receives the decree, kneel thrice and bow 9 times. This finished, the Emperor will then go out by the eastern door into the side palace. The President of the Board of Rights shall issue orders to the governors of the palace, the officers of the Imperial Guard, and the chief ministers of the interior to go and solicit His Majesty to put on his imperial robes and proceed to the palace of his mother, the Empress Dowager, and pay his respects. The Empress Dowager will put on her court robes and ascend her throne, before which His Majesty shall kneel thrice and bow 9 times. After the performance of this ceremony, the governors of the palace shall let down the curtain before the door of the Emperor's private apartments, and the officers of the interior imperial guards shall have in readiness the golden chariot directly in the middle, in front of the door of the imperial residence. The President of the Board of Rights shall then bring forward the officer of the Astronomical Board, whose business is to observe times, to the gate of His Majesty's residence, to announce the arrival of the chosen and felicitious moment. His Majesty will then go out by the left door of his apartments and mount the golden chariot. The President of the Board of Rights, together with 10 of the great officers of the same board, shall take their stations in front of the imperial chariot to lead on the procession. 2 officers of the personal guard shall walk behind. 10 chief officers of the Leopard Tail Legion of Guards, holding spears, perhaps muskets, and 10 bearing swords shall form the wings of the personal guard. The procession shall then move in order to the Pauho Palace, that is, the Palace of Protection and Peace, where His Majesty will descend from the chariot. Here, the President of the Board of Rights shall solicit His Majesty to sit down in the Royal Middle Palace. Then, the President of the Hung Lu Office shall lead forward the great officers of the Interior, the officers of the Imperial Guard, of the Council Chamber, of the National Institute, of the Chinze Office, of the Keiken Office, of the Board of Rights, and of the Censor Office, arranging them in front and rear according to their rank. He shall then call upon them to kneel thrice and bow 9 times. This ceremony over, the President of the Board of Rights, stepping forward, shall kneel down and beseech His Majesty, saying, "Ascend the imperial throne." The Emperor shall then rise from his seat, and the procession, moving on in the same order as above described to the Imperial Palace of Peace, His Majesty shall ascend the seat of gems and sit down on the imperial throne with his face to the south. At the Wu Gate, the bells shall then be rung and the drums beaten, but no other instruments of music shall be sounded. The chief officer of the Imperial Guards shall say aloud, "Strike the whip," a brazen rod called by this name. The whip shall accordingly be struck below the throne. The master of the ceremony shall command the attendant ministers to arrange themselves in ranks. The president of the Hung Lu office shall bring up the kings and dukes on the elevation at the foot of the throne, and the master of the ceremonies shall lead forward the civil and military officers and arrange them in due order within the vestibule. He shall say, "Advance." They shall accordingly advance. He shall say, "Kneel." Then the kings and all the ranks downward shall kneel. When he says, "Bow your heads to the ground and rise," then the kings and all the ranks downward shall kneel thrice, bow the head to the ground 9 times, and rise accordingly. When he says, "Retire," the kings and downward shall all retire and stand in their former places. Then the Prime Minister, entering by the left door of the palace, shall go to the table, and taking the proclamation in both his hands, shall place it on the middle table, after which he shall retire for a moment and stand with his face to the west. The President of the Council Chamber, advancing to the middle table with his face to the north, shall seal the proclamation and retire. The President of the Board of Rights shall then approach near, and the Prime Minister, taking the proclamation in both hands, shall walk out with it by the imperial door of the Palace of Peace, and deliver it to the President of the Board of Rights, who shall kneel and receive it. After rising, he shall carry it to the table in the middle of the elevation below the throne, and lay it thereon with profound reverence, shall kneel once and bow to the ground 3 times. Next, he shall kneel and take up the proclamation in both hands, shall rise and descend by the middle steps. The President of the Board of Rights, kneeling, shall take up with both his hands the cloud-kept basin into which he shall receive the proclamation, and then rise. The officers of the Imperial Guard shall spread out the yellow canopy or umbrella over the said basin, and go out with it by the middle door of the Palace of Peace. The civil and military officers shall follow out by the gate of resplendent virtue and the gate of virgin felicity. The chief officer of the guard shall then say, "Strike the brazen whip." It shall accordingly be struck thrice below the steps. His Majesty shall then rise, step to the back of the palace, mount his chariot, and go forth by the left door to the outside of the door of his private apartments, where he shall descend from the chariot and enter in the side palace by the left door, shall change his robes and return to the Met, where the funeral obsequies are performed. The Prime Minister shall lead forward the presidents, who shall reverentially take the imperial seal and deliver it at the door of the imperial residence to one of the great officers of the interior. At this time, the proclamation bearer, taking the document in both his hands, shall proceed to the outside of the Wu gate and place it in the Dragon Dome, shall kneel once and bow to the ground thrice. Then the officers of the guard and sword bearers shall carry forward the domes in the following order: the incense dome in front and the dragon dome behind. The officers of the Board of Music shall lead on the procession immediately behind the imperial insignia, but shall not play the national mourning, forbidding this. One of the judges of the Board of Rights shall then ascend to the tower on the wall opposite the gate of celestial repose, and they shall set down the incense dome, the proclamation being placed there also in the middle of the dragon dome. The proclamation bearer shall then kneel once and bow to the ground thrice, after which, taking the proclamation in both hands, he shall lay it on the yellow table, which is placed on a high stage. The dragon dome and incense dome shall be removed and set down directly in front of the gate of celestial repose. The officers, civil and military, shall arrange themselves at the south end of the golden bridge. The master of the ceremony shall say, "Form ranks, also enter." The officers, civil and military, shall accordingly form ranks, and the venerable elders of the people, a little behind, shall form themselves into two files, and all stand facing the north. The herald minister shall then ascend the stage. The master of the ceremony shall say, "An edict." Then all shall instantly fall on their knees. The herald shall next read the proclamation in the Chinese language, after which he retires to the table. The words "bow," "rise," being pronounced by the master of the ceremonies, and answered by 3 genuflections and 9 prostrations from all present. The proclamation bearer, taking the said document in both hands, shall place it again in the cloud-kept basin and suspend it by an ornamented cord from the bill of the golden phoenix. The judge of the Board of Rights, receiving the same, shall set it again in the dragon dome, and going out by the gate of exalted purity, the procession shall be led on, as formerly, by the officers of the Board of Music behind the imperial insignia, but without playing to the office of the Board of Rights, where an incense table being placed, the president of the Board of Rights shall bring forward the judges, who shall kneel thrice and bow to the ground 9 times. These ceremonies all finished, let the proclamation be reverentially printed and promulgated throughout the empire. Such is our statement laid before your Majesty. The imperial pleasure has been received thus. Act according to the statement. Respect this. If you can render a reason for this lengthy ceremonial of guards, tables, gates, elephants, carriages, domes, pillars, robes, golden chariots, leopard tail legion, brazen whip, golden phoenix, proclamation, genuflections, and prostrations, you can do what I dare not undertake. Perhaps we had better not puzzle our heads about it, but leave all the honor and all the profit of it to the followers of Confucius.